Okay, we are recording. Welcome to this will be what is it? The third episode of Flooded Cinema, and I'm joined today with my very special guest, Muskox, at Muskox, or at what's your at?
It's at Muskox online.
Awesome. Very good.
Yeah.
And we've got a very special episode today where we will be discussing two Michael Caine two movies, not episodes. Funeral in Berlin and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So this was a good double feature, I thought.
Yeah,
Good
I thought
pairing.
there's a good contrast. You have younger Michael Caine playing a very serious sort of th role in a thriller, and then you've got
Yeah,
him later in his career playing it's a complete farce, the Dirty
yeah,
Rotten Scoundrel. So.
yeah. I think Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is the only movie I've seen him in where he isn't using his normal accent.
Yeah, he's playing
A
he's
feat.
playing an upper class Englishman,
Yeah.
um, who we learn later in the movie is basically a failed artist
Mmm.
and
Yeah, that's true.
and
That's good.
is just trying to yeah.
Make his way. Um. So, had you ever seen Funeral in Berlin before?
Yeah, so I've seen Funeral Blend a few times. One of my favorite sort of those early spy movies.
Mm.
It's not as obviously it's not as silly as kind of the contemporary James Bond movies, but
Yeah.
yeah, the interesting thing is it's directed by Guy Hamilton, who directed Goldfinger.
Yeah. No, I looked him up. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, he directed a couple of the first James Bond movies. So
Mm.
in and him, like a lot of people at the time, he was a there's a number of people who worked on that movie who were actually in British intelligence during the war.
Oh, really?
So
He was
yeah, so it's really
presumably
interesting
one.
yeah, to see their kind of see their take on being a spy.
Yeah.
So
I really liked it as well. It was like I would describe it as like extreme dadcore type movie. Like this is just you just put this on like anytime your dad will just sit there and like feel like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I want.
yeah, exactly. It's a very it's got drama throughout the whole thing, and a couple of twists in there that I feel like pay off.
Mm.
And
There's a few
um,
good characters as well.
yeah, the most it's funny. It's I think more than there's only really two or three really main English characters. The rest are Germans and Israelis. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's another interesting thing.
that's one of my favorite lines in the movie is when that woman asks Michael Caine, are you an anti-Semite or something?
Yes.
That's a funny
Well,
line.
yeah, we should the question I have for you is so the female lead there, Samantha Steele. Did you notice anything strange about her dialogue?
I noticed that all of her lines were ADR. They were
Yeah,
yeah.
so the role was originally given to an American actress.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm gonna probably butcher this name. I think it's just Annette, but spelled a little differently.
Okay.
Um, and Annette Comer, whatever you want to say, um, and
Yeah.
who's an American TV actress, and she is
Ah.
actually the voice. She is the voice of Samantha Steele.
Ah. So
Um,
so was it just scheduling, or they didn't like the look of her?
she had some sort of illness, if I remember correctly.
Ah.
Um, yeah, she was unable to film. That was
Yeah. I'll be honest. Like, I wasn't particularly impressed with the her performance. I mean, it was fine. It was serviceable. Oh yeah, I'm
yeah,
seeing the name here. Anjanette Coma.
yeah,
That is. Oh, she looks far more Israeli. That's why it was
yeah.
kind. It came off kind of strange. I think it worked better for the plot, honestly, having her not look particularly Israeli. We'll call it
No, yeah.
because it was.
She's definitely. sort of a blonde. She's a blonde German woman.
Yeah.
Who's I think the original actor who played her is from Berlin.
Yeah.
Um, should we kind of do a quick synopsis of the plot?
Yeah, let's get into it. Do you want to explain this one? Yeah, you take it away. You
Yeah,
give the
yeah. So essentially, so Funeral Berlin is kind of the second movie in what ended up being five movies, three movies originally, in the kind of the Harry Palmer um, trilogy. So Harry Palmer, they're all based on these books by Len Dighton, who is kind of very similar to Ian Fleming in that he was a Second World War veteran who basically was also a writer and tried to kind of spin that into a career. The difference between Len Dighton and Ian Fleming is Len Dighton was a RAF photographer, and Ian Fleming obviously had some sort of espionage
mm,
experience.
yeah.
Um, but so this is the second movie
Ah.
in the trilogy of or the original three trilogy series they did on these Harry Palmer books.
Okay.
Um, so it's based on the novel by the same name, obviously. So Harry Palmer, Michael Caine, is a MI5 agent who
Yes.
is a former criminal who during the British occupation in Berlin basically he's made a lot of contacts and he knows Berlin very well, and the kind of cast of colorful characters that we'll meet he's pretty
Mm.
familiar with. Um, he is sent to London, or sent from London to Berlin to arrange the defection of a Russian colonel who's been in charge of the
Mm.
border wall there.
Yeah.
And through this, we meet kind of our um, his kind of partner in the beginning, uh, Johnny Vulcan,
Yeah.
or we'll learn Paul Louis Broom, played by Paul
Mm.
Schmidt, um, who also surprised me. I hadn't known this, but he was a very prolific stage actor and
Mm.
film actor. He had a career that lasted basically his entire adult life, um, but mostly in German cinema.
Ah,
And
yeah.
so he's essentially sent over to Berlin with the cover of a lingerie salesman to
Yeah.
negotiate arrange for this colonel to be brought over. Um, and
Yeah.
that's kind of our
The
basic setup.
yeah,
And
the movie ensues from there.
yes,
Yeah, I really like the setup. I wasn't aware that it was actually part of a film series. I really should have. Maybe I should have
no,
looked up
it's
more into
very
it, but it's I imagine they're
in the
disconnected.
same sort of in the same sort of spirit of like the pulp kind of books
Yeah.
it was based on. They're kind of detached from each other. They're
Yeah.
all, you can just imagine if you found that in a bookstore, you wouldn't need too much of
No.
a backstory
No.
to
No. No.
get right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only two returning characters in any of the movies are Michael Caine and uh, Colonel Ross, who is
Ah, yeah.
played by Guy Dorman, so his kind of handler.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Everyone else is new.
Yeah. So it's very similar to James Bond in that sort of regard, I guess.
Hmm.
But I really liked the opening and the
Yeah,
whole like Cold War setup, like with the people coming over the
yeah.
wall.
The first scene of the movie is essentially you have uh, a there's construction going on at the wall, and you see someone jump into the bucket of a crane and get carried over, and
Yeah.
um, and you have that uh, the very it's a great transition that cuts straight from him getting over to the photo of him getting over and Michael Caine listening to him on the radio in his apartment.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
where I thought a very funny line is who's who's playing. He asks his
Oh yeah.
girlfriend who's who's on the who's on the radio playing the piano with their elbows. Um, as he plays some sort of very complex concerto, and
Yeah,
uh, yeah.
yeah,
So essentially, the movie, you have sort of your standard spy setup. He reluctantly, he drags himself out of bed with a beautiful lady
yeah, yeah. Of
to
course.
force to go do his job,
Yeah,
and
I really like
we
that
have.
as a setup. I think that works a lot better with a um, a suave spy type character that they're sort of more forced into doing it. That's sort of one
Mhm,
thing um, that definitely separates it from James Bond, because obviously James Bond and like a lot of other these spy things, they are patriotic or whatever,
yeah,
and
I think
it doesn't
I
quite.
think it.
It seems like they're more like psychopathic in that way. Like it's
Yeah,
like the
I
Daniel
think it's.
Craig makes more sense. Like for that,
Mhm.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Is I think it matches up a lot with like these kind of later sort of the
Yeah,
early James Bond. Is a big contrast because you know there's he doesn't drive a nice car, and he doesn't he's not
yeah,
um,
yeah,
wearing a tuxedo in every other shot. He's kind of he's good at his job, but he's reluctant to be there,
yeah.
and he's kind of over. He's being forced to do this. He's being
Mm,
forced to do this in the first place. He's avoiding a prison sentence by
yeah,
working for MI5. So
yeah. I
yeah,
think it's a good
it's
setup,
a yes, yeah.
and yeah, I really like his relationship with his handler is done quite well. Just the sort of the handler is just sort of sick of him, but he has to use him, and
Hmm.
obviously he resents the handler, but he knows he can't really do anything about it. So they just sort of have the bit of the back and forth when they're meeting up and he's at his house, um, which I liked.
Yeah, the scene with him in the garden.
Yes.
He's A garden is something you should be able to. I feel like a garden is like a good country lane. It's something you should be able to walk in.
Yeah.
And the scene with the weeds
Yeah.
too is also that motif which he brings up when he finally eventually meets Colonel Stock.
Yeah.
So after he gets to Berlin, the first thing he does is meet up with Johnny Vulcan, who's
Yeah.
sort of a kind of a German agent. He's working for MI5 in Berlin,
Yeah.
um, running their front lingerie factory,
Yeah.
and and it's kind of obvious when he picks him up from the airport, he has a past relationship with Michael Caine in the kind of
Yeah.
Berlin underworld,
Yeah. Yeah.
as it were. Um,
Yeah. I really like that,
so
and I like So then after that, obviously he goes to East Berlin for the first time,
yes,
and
so we have him finally meet up with his sort of target, as you will, is
yeah.
Colonel Stock, who's
Yeah.
funny enough played by Oscar Homka, who is a British actor, even though he's playing a Russian.
I
Yeah,
swear I've
or,
seen him.
I'm sorry,
He's must have
a German actor, but he's playing Russian.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
he has that sort of like weird not squishy, squished in sort of face that I think kind of makes him perfect for playing old Russians.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
kind of
That
looks like
Slavic look.
Khrushchev.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
Khrushchev had hair, he looks a lot like
yeah,
him.
yeah.
So
And I love as soon as he gets into East Berlin, like the cinematography sort of just becomes much more like the Third Man, like Orson Welles, like these angles, it's like low on the ground, like with the concrete, like the bricks behind Michael Caine, and it's much
yeah,
more like tense and
everything seems to be filmed from sort of a street away at least.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
all everything. There's a ton of context in every shot there,
Mm.
um, and I think it's a great. It just works really well together with kind of the '60s West Berlin sort of.
Yeah.
Like the airport especially strikes me. You see these gigantic like I don't know what that kind of style of architecture is, but you see these gigantic sort of Mercedes Benz logos and
Yeah, yeah, that was
Lufthansa and all
really
this other
weird.
stuff.
That's like seems almost surreal to me, but like I guess that must have
Yeah,
been what
and
it actually looked like.
yeah, I think it was actually filmed um, in the Berlin airport. So I think that's just the Berlin
Uh
airport, Berlin airport there.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy.
yeah, so we finally have him meet up with Colonel Stalk. He is arrested as a joke essentially by the Russian
Yeah,
colonel, and dragged into the I don't know if it would be the Stasi at this point, but whatever the border guards
yeah, yeah,
the offices, and locked in there and in a completely dark room. And then we have the colonel finally turn on the lights
yeah.
and, and
Did I
just
scare
starts
you?
laughing maniacally at how,
Yeah.
you know, did I scare you, English? Yes. And that scene is another great one because you just you
Mm,
learn about it's you kind of sense Michael Caine is obviously uneasy with this colonel. He
mm.
doesn't really believe him at first,
No.
and
Well, he
we have
doesn't
that.
ever
I think that
really
great.
believe him, does he? He's like
No, he
skeptical the
doesn't.
whole time. Like he thinks it's not a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's very cautious of the whole thing, but he's assured by by Vulcan that no this I've spoken with him a lot. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
um complete this is completely above board,
Mm.
and we see that kind of that great you know back and forth they have as he's trying to sort of suss him out, and he's getting he Paul Heemenschmidt, the Colonel Stalk, sorry, uh, just basically will say affirm the entire time, I am still a good
Yeah, I
communist.
know. That was so
Uh,
funny. It was a funny little
and
detail.
yeah, I'm still a good communist. I'm still an old Bolshevik at heart. And I can't remember if it is in this scene or if it's in the later sort of dialogue with him. When you see, I was does Smolensk and Stalingrad mean
Yeah,
anything to you?
yeah,
And we learned he was apparently present at the storming of the Winter Palace
yeah. That's kind
and
of
all
weird.
these other sort
It's a
of
weird
events.
detail. He could have been lying about that stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, he could have also, but it was just that I thought it was a strange thing to include.
Mm. And then, well, then later on, like what does he say? It's like, oh, one dead fascist. That's good for the both of us, or something like that.
No, what do you care for one dead
Ah,
fascist?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think is around the same line. Um, and
That's jumping ahead a
and
little
yeah,
bit, but
yeah, to jump ahead of it, we finally have our meeting with the female lead, Samantha Steele, this Israeli underwear model, um, uh, who he meets. He essentially meets outside of the hotel he's staying at when he's trying to get
yeah,
a cab.
yeah.
Um,
And he's
and he's also
immediately, yeah, yeah,
immediately suspicious of her as well. Um, you know, I think the line is eventually he reconfers with his superiors, and his line to them is, am I just that irresistible? Am I so irresistibly attractive that you would just grab me off the street?
yeah.
Um,
The other, and then obviously he investigates her by getting a thief to like break into her apartment. But
yeah.
the bit I love about that is he goes and he meets the West German chief of police, or like some police guy, and he keeps harassing him for these old contacts. And as you can tell,
Yes. Yes.
the German is so sick of all this espionage. He just wants to like run the city and be a good
Yeah.
policeman, but the CIA and MI5 and KGB are always just like messing with
Yeah.
him.
There's a great
Hilarious.
line from him where he's saying this is a police station, not an employment bureau for criminals.
Yeah.
Um, and he's very frustrated by the whole thing.
Yeah.
Back going back to so when he first goes into her apartment the first time, um, they do the whole kind of sort of strip tease. She kind of undresses in front of him sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
unceremoniously as he's like rummaging around looking for a safe or a gun, and
Yeah.
I think eventually he finds a safe, and that's what kind
Mm.
of gets him to bring
Yeah.
this burglar into the mix.
Yeah.
Um, it's very funny because so he does have the burglar go through her stuff um, and take pictures of everything, and she does the same to him.
Yeah.
He gets back to his apartment and his is completely trashed as well. But you know, the burglars there waiting for him,
Yeah.
and just commenting on how much of an
Yeah, the other
amateur job
burglar
this
was.
is.
Yeah.
He was not impressed. Yeah, I think the top drawer was opened first, which I think is kind of funny because I
Mm.
don't know, I'm not a burglar, but that's what I would do. So
I guess that makes sense because if you open the top drawer first, then you'd have to close it to open the one below that or something. I don't know.
yeah, that would make sense.
I don't know. If you're trying to do it quickly, you'd go from the bottom up, maybe. That's
Yeah.
a good point. And then I think it's pretty much after that that we meet what's his name, Kreutzmann.
Yes,
So
Kreutzmann and
and then
they
obviously
they
he is Slughorn from the Willy Wonka from Charlie and the
yes.
Chocolate Factory. Or is that? Oh no, that's Willy Wonka's and the Chocolate Factory. That one. I always
Yeah,
get them
he's
confused.
from
Yeah,
the original '70s one, obviously.
yeah,
Um, well, I think this was before that even.
yeah.
So,
No, yeah, it
um,
was.
but yeah, Slughorn. That always creeped me. That scene always creeped me out as a kid. Is that
Yeah, yeah,
he looked almost like I'd always thought he looked sort of like um, specifically in that scene he looks like kind of like Japanese war propaganda. You know, like those like old like cartoons. Like he's got the big glasses and the buck teeth and everything, and it's just like
yeah.
always what that reminded me of.
I
Um, yeah, so we meet Kreutzmann. They do this very strange sort of
mm.
rendezvous at a drag bar.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's right. And yeah,
uh,
Palmer's not impressed at all. Michael Caine.
no, he's not impressed either by the drag bar or by the fact that Kreutzmann tries to, he's driving. He's the one driving. They
Yeah,
meet in the back of a car, but he's the one driving the car.
yeah. They're trying to
Um,
trick him.
yeah.
Mm. Just while on the topic, I think it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. No, which one is? Whatever the old one was actually filmed
Mhm.
in Berlin as well,
Oh yeah.
and that's why they got Slughorn because they just
Hmm.
found some random German guy basically.
Yeah. Oh, it's I think we should have mentioned obviously is so a big plot point of this movie surrounds sort of documentation and
Yes,
before he goes to Berlin, he goes to the kind of your Q character is this
yes,
I can't remember the name. Is it the home? He works for the Home Secretary or he works
yeah,
for
yeah.
um,
Uh,
some department in England. I'm not sure the name of it. But so he goes to him to get the forged documents to get him into the
yes.
country in the first place. And I think his name is Edmund Dorff, his
Mm.
pseudonym. And just he another very funny line in that is why couldn't I give me a Dorff? I don't feel like Dorff. You know, how about Rock Hunter? I think is his
Yeah.
suggestion. Um, and that the Q character comes back
Yes. And
later in the film.
he's an unusual bit like effeminate sort of guy, we'll say.
Yeah, he's effeminate, and we see the interior of his apartment, and he's living under he's living in this kind of very ratty, old apartment, and it's
Yeah.
filled completely with sort of Oriental, Chinese and Japanese.
Yeah. And what does
I
Michael
think,
Caine say? He goes like, when did you get back from China or something?
yeah, yeah, he's he's got a cat that is named Confucius,
Yes. Yes, that's
and
right.
a very I think the first time we see him is he's wearing this
Robe,
sort of
yeah.
kimono, this robe
Yeah.
that is way too short for him. It's like
Yeah, it's very strange.
it's basically a shirt. um
What
yeah,
what
but
do you
back to
think what do you think the deal is with all the Chinese stuff that's just supposed to make him seem
I
weird? I
think
don't
it's
know.
I mean the movie is old enough that I think it's sort of supposed to make him seem like kind of eclectic
Yeah.
and like, peculiar to us. I think we're supposed to not
Yeah.
trust him in the
Yeah.
beginning.
'Cause it's
Like I think in a later scene, he asks Michael Caine if he has a cigarette, and he says, Sure, would you like a French one? And he says, no, no, that's all right. Which is, and
Yeah,
also kind of another very strange sort of like peculiarity of his
yeah,
character. Like why wouldn't you want, there's very little difference, I would assume, between French and
yeah.
English cigarettes.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. That's a funny. Sorry, sorry. What? Where were we up to then? We're up to
Yeah,
uh,
we'd gotten
Kreutzmann.
to
Kreutzmann.
Kreutzmann, yeah. So we meet this sort of, I guess there's no other word for it, as a human trafficker. He's this
Yeah,
guy who smuggles people across the Berlin Wall.
yeah,
Um, and the reason they meet with Kreutzmann in the first place is Colonel Stock has asked for him by name.
yeah,
Um, Colonel Stock insists that we use Kreutzmann. He's the best. He's the reason I have to defect, is because we are, people
yeah,
are
yeah,
coming through my wall way too many times. This Kreutzmann fella.
yeah,
Um, and so they do. I think it's a very sort of standard thing where he's not actually talking to Kreutzmann, but Kreutzmann,
yeah,
is pretending
yeah,
to be the driver.
yeah.
And so after this, we have what I thought was sort of strange for movies like this is we have a kind of a big pause here because Michael Caine has to one of the things Kreutzmann requests on top of the payment is documents
Yeah,
that match a very very specific description.
yeah,
Um, they have a lot of sort of um, caveats to them that
mm,
that are very interesting. Like I don't remember if they named them specifically, but they had to be he had to be a German war veteran. He had to be born between these days.
yeah,
He had to have a certain amount of documentation, and so Michael Caine has to go back to London basically to get approval for some of this stuff,
yeah,
and um, it like I said, I think it's very strange for sort of like a spy thriller movie like this to have such a big sort of like, you know, he just
mm.
goes back.
It's you can
He's
tell.
perfectly free to leave. His
Yeah,
cover's not blown or anything.
yeah. You
But
can very much tell it's based on a book because you wouldn't like in a more modern movie script you wouldn't have something like that at all happen.
no,
Really.
I think of it sort of like comparing it to like the Jason Bourne movies recently,
Yeah.
like which are it's like he's either escaped he's escaped the immediate danger at the beginning of the movie. He's escaped whatever immediate danger he's in, and he
Yeah.
has like 20 minutes basically to actually have some sort of conversation with people and build sort of
Yeah.
relationships that he just spends the next the next hour and a half basically running
Running.
away from
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I mean, they're basically Jason Bourne movies are sort of like they're like Crank compared to this movie. You know,
Yeah.
which I
um
like. I like the slow
yeah,
burn pace and like
it's
you
definitely
slowly
a trope.
putting it all together, like who's who and whatnot. And I don't know if I want to give away the ending, like the big twister in it necessarily. Like I think at this point we could just recommend the movie because it's a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think there's a if we don't want to spoil it too much, I think there's a couple other scenes. There's at least I'd like to mention
yeah, yeah,
the scene, if we don't want to spoil it, I guess the I'll just call it the coffin scene.
yeah.
Um,
That's great. That's real.
um,
The reveal there. I was expecting, let's just say I was expecting some dodginess of stock, but then like all the additional elements like are really
yeah,
makes it really
I
good.
guess.
Yeah.
So the one before we move on, I think the one thing that we should actually mention really is the so Samantha Steele is obviously not who she seems. His immediate
Yeah.
sort of instinct is right about her, and she ends up being a Mossad agent,
Yeah.
which is, I think it's funny. Obviously with whatever
Yeah.
political stuff is
Yeah.
going on, but can't really imagine the Israeli intelligence being
Yeah.
brought up in any other sort of modern spy movie. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. No, in the way it's very I mean Michael Caine he's quite sympathetic to their cause. No, what does he says? Oh, you're a full blown Zionist or something.
yeah, Yeah, no, and you end up being a full blown Zionist,
Yeah.
and I think her response is something like, "Yes, and why shouldn't I be?" or something sort of kind of catty.
Yeah.
Um,
But it is.
it's a very interesting sort of plot, and I think the other interesting thing is I'll mention that we'll try to not spoil it here, but so one of the characters in the movie is a former sort of concentration camp guard, sort of some
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
rear guard in the German army, and they don't really like in his sort of like explanation as to why he did it was because he was if you were 17 would
Yeah.
you rather be a guard at a concentration camp or die on the Russian front,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which is like a level of sort of like complexity I don't think you'd see in a movie that had that sort of subject matter in it anymore. Like you
No.
wouldn't
Yeah.
he wouldn't have be they wouldn't attempt really to make it him sympathetic at all.
I think it's
Um,
probably I can't even think of a more sympathetic portrayal of a Nazi.
yeah, no, and he's not like like a
Yeah.
ideological fanatic or anything. He's just
He just was
he's
a
just a kind of a
German, yeah, during the
yeah.
war.
Hmm.
Yeah. Just trying to think, is there any other things I wanted to mention? I had a note here. French cigarette. We talked about that.
Yeah.
We talked about the police chief. Um, what did you think of the ending, just tonally? Um,
Yeah, so it's sort of
it's like basically a
it's a
happy ending, kind of.
yeah, it's a very sort of slow burning movie, and the ending is I think it does pay off in the end.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little
The
tonally off though. Like it, I don't know what they could have
yeah,
done differently.
yeah, I think part of that's like even the lighting in that last scene is very strange. It's very I think they do a lot of contrast in that last scene that's like not present at all really. Like
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time sort of picturing it, but I
I know what
sort
you
of that
mean.
last
Yeah,
scene, yeah, where he's sort of like really harsh. It kind of reminds me of like old black and white movies when you'd see like like when Frankenstein shows up, he's lit
yeah,
very like
High,
he's
super
lit like
high.
that, and it kind of throws it off for me a bit. But no, the ending is I think is satisfying.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
saying I disliked it. I just felt like I don't know. Like I guess the standard ending would be the love interest dies.
yeah,
You
well, I
know.
think that could just be sort of it could be a kind of consequence of like so many movies just try to, I think that is sort of would be your standard ending,
Yeah,
but so many movies are like, oh, try in a sort of an attempt to be different or an attempt to like, give the movie a darker tone. I think a lot of like more recent movies
that's
have
true.
done that.
Yeah,
It's like I've done the reverse, and I think that's
yeah,
kind of become the standard now. So you're more expecting like a
yeah,
darker,
yeah.
like a
Yeah, I mean, I think I almost preferred that it wasn't necessarily because it wasn't a dark movie. Like it wasn't a depressing movie or anything. It was more just
no.
like about this character, like this extremely competent and smart guy, like having to deal with these problems as best he can when he's sort of forced into a situation he doesn't want to, be in at all.
Yeah, I think a kind of a good comparison to it would be sort of like Tinker Tailor,
I have
Tinker
not
Tailor
seen
Soldier.
that. I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's very good. It's a very sort of similar.
Yeah,
The new one I haven't seen. I know there's a couple of versions of it, but
Gary
the one
Oldman and
with
that the new one.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's actually a very star-studded cast there. I think
is Michael
it's
Caine in
got
that?
Benedict Cumberbatch. No, he's
No.
not.
Oh,
It's
okay.
kind of surprising that he wasn't, but
Yeah, because I've seen the Spy Who Came In from the Cold, and it's sort of similar, but that has a dark ending,
yeah.
more
Well,
depressing
I would
ending.
say it's sort of similar to
Yeah,
well, that's a long title to say, but it's
yeah.
similar to
Tinker
that.
Tailor.
And,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, that it has sort of like a slow burning tension, but it's not like in your face really with
yeah.
any
It's more matter of fact,
yeah.
procedural or
I
something.
think
Yeah,
I think it holds your attention better than Tinker Tailor, but I think it's not obviously saying as much. But
yeah,
overall, it's a it's a I think a great example of the genre, and
yeah. No, I really
and
liked it. It's good. I like watching. older movies like 60s and that, and when it's just sort of when I don't know when things weren't as so in your face, not just politically but also
Hmm.
the plot and the effects, and it doesn't have to be super over the top. I
Yeah,
really like that. Yeah.
I think a gun is probably only fired in the movie probably like 6 or 7 times,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know, and it's like spread across maybe 2 or 3 scenes. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can count the
it
number of deaths, so you're not in like
mhm.
modern James
You're
Bond
not even in
territory.
yeah, exactly. You're not even like there's no real henchmen that are being
No. No.
shot every other scene either.
Well, there isn't even really an antagonist. It's just
Yeah,
like a
no, it's not.
yeah, it's just like a confluence of forces, and he's just at the
Mhm.
middle of it, like an unfortunate character in the middle of it. Which I
It
like.
is a genuine sort of spy. I mean, I could imagine if someone had told me this, this plot as a, you know, someone had written this. If I had had that read that original book and been told, oh, this is something that really happened, it's very. I mean, there's almost nothing. It's not almost absolutely just believable. So
Yeah, yeah. So big recommend from me, and
same
you
here.
see, yeah. And we'll move on now to Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So this is
Probably
1988, directed by Frank Oz. Who? What else did he? He directed lots of good comedies. He directed.
Frank
Oh,
Oz.
yeah, The
Yeah,
Muppet Show.
yes, the Muppets, and he was the. I think he's
Yes.
the voice of Yoda as well. Um,
Ah.
so a lot of connection there.
Yeah. But
It's a very sort of star-driven movie. You have Michael Caine and Steve Martin, who are your two
yeah,
leads.
yeah.
who
I
on-
love.
and,
This is one of my favorite comedies of all time. This is like me and my family would watch this like all the time. Um,
Say, I think both of us. I had mentioned last time I watched it too. It was with my dad as well. So it's
yeah,
just sort of a. It's a great. It's a. I mean, it's not raunchy, but it's also it's a great movie to watch with your dad again.
yeah,
I guess that could be
yeah.
the other
That's true.
commonality here.
Well, I think Michael
Is
Caine's the commonality.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Well,
yeah,
the interesting thing I thought about his character in this is after watching these two movies close together is sort of
that's a
Michael.
good point. Yeah, he could have become this character.
Yeah, they could just have easily been sort of this sort of kind of
Mm,
lying but suave
yeah,
guy. Um,
yeah. Um, well, I guess I'll say sort of give the basic outline. So it's set in on the French Riviera at Beaumont-sur-Mer, which is actually a real place I looked up.
yeah.
But it's like
Have
a
you the villa there that they use was built by I think a German architect to be like some sort of neoclassical. It's supposed to look like a Roman estate.
yeah, it
Michael
feels that
Caine's
way.
house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's set there, and it's basically the story of there's this a team of these like European guys that are sort of con artists in this town, and they basically rob rich women for thousands and
Hmm.
tens of thousands of dollars. And then this other small time con artist comes into town, and then this sort of competition arises because he's this crass American, um, and it's sort of the clash between these two different personalities of this very what would you say sophisticated Michael Caine versus
Yeah.
Steve
Well,
Martin.
Michael Caine plays your sort of stereotype, in the American mind, the sort of stereotypical like upper class
Mm.
British
Yeah,
person.
yeah. So he doesn't have the
He's
voice, his normal voice in this one. So when I was because I've been trying to work on my Michael Caine impression, so this is not a good movie for that. I would
hmm
say, but
no, he's playing. Michael Caine normally play. He's East End,
yeah,
this East End guy
Mr.
that's like
White.
working class.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, East London guy, but now he's in here. He's sort of this more effete kind of nobleman. um,
yeah,
he plays his main sort of scam, his main con is pretending to be the prince uh, of a small European country that's been taken over by communists.
it's such a
I,
funny
I
line. Yeah,
Yeah, I think in I can't remember if it was before or after this movie came out, but they had there was someone who was actually pretending to be like the prince of I think the prince of Montenegro. Um, Sort of did this in real life. Would kind of swindle sort of upper class women
Ah, that's funny.
and just show up to official things. This is obviously before the internet and
Yeah,
photos were a little less prevalent, but um,
yeah,
interesting nonetheless.
yeah. I almost don't recognize Michael Caine in this because he just looks so different to how he normally looks. Because well, I guess for number one, he has the mustache,
Yeah, the mustache and the
slicked back
hair that
hair.
is yes.
Could not
The
be any more slick
no,
back.
yeah, one of the great scenes from the movies when he's trying to train Steve Martin. He's got this. He puts this gigantic, an
Yeah,
entire handful of pomade
yeah,
in his
that's
hands,
so
and
funny. Um, what does he say? His name is Lawrence something or other.
Lawrence Jameson.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
If it's Lawrence Jameson, Michael Caine's character, and then Freddie Benson
yeah,
is Steve Martin's
yeah, yeah,
character. Again, sort of reinforcing that that kind of divide
yeah,
with the name. The,
yeah, yeah. Lawrence versus Freddy. But
uh,
so what kicks it off is
um,
him getting arrested.
so
He gets a Steve Martin arrested. Oh well, actually
yes,
no. We should
uh,
let's discuss the train because that's so.
yeah,
I love that
it's a
bit
great scene.
because
Um,
that's almost a reflection I think of the entire movie
yeah.
is the moment
So
where Michael. So I'll just explain it quickly. So basically, Michael
mm,
Caine has just ripped off a woman for however much money, and he gets on the train, goes to Zurich, and he's coming back to his house in France. And on the train, he bumps into Steve Martin, who sees Steve Martin like go up to a woman and tell her this story about my grandma is so sick. I'm just he gets the waiter to come over and gets the waiter to hand him a menu, and he has a look, and he just goes, I'll just have a glass of water. I think I'll just have water. And he just sort of
yeah,
acts like this pathetic guy, and he says tells this woman this line about his grandma's sick, and then he gets her to buy him like a steak dinner. Oh
mhm.
no, it's the
Yeah.
double turkey on rye or whatever it is.
That'll be a double turkey on Ryan, three and I think 4 pints of beer. Um,
Yeah,
it's very funny because it's like the most sort of like the most basic sort of con you could think of, like the first thing that comes to your mind.
yeah.
And I'm not sure if this is previous to the train scene or after, where Michael Caine's reading in the. I can't remember if it's Michael Caine or the the French chief of police um, is reading about the Jackal,
Oh yes,
this
yes,
American con artist who is terrorizing Western Europe. Um,
yes.
you know,
So yeah, that's
um,
important. I forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, and Michael Caine obviously he meets this sort of you know this really amateur con artist and assumes that this is the Jackal that he's been
Mm,
reading about.
yeah. And what one thing I really like is so then they it turns out they have the same compartment on the train, and so they're sitting down, and Michael Caine says to Steve Martin, "Oh, sorry to hear about your grandma." And then Steve Martin starts laughing and says, "Oh no, I just made that up to get stuff. Do you know what it feels like to rip off a woman for $20 or something
Yeah,
like that?"
yeah. What it's like to take a woman for an entire dinner.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, and Michael Caine is playing it off as he's the as
he's
he's
this.
trying to kind of dissuade Steve Martin from coming to Beaumont-sur-Mer.
Yeah,
Um, so he plays up, all the social life has gone to the Italian Riviera. The French Riviera
yeah,
is is just a lot of old retirees like me. I'm
yeah,
actually considered the town playboy. Uh,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and as we get closer to the end, he makes a phone call on the train to Andre, who's the detective, the French.
yeah.
I can't remember if he's the chief of police or detective.
He's chief of
Um,
police, yeah, of Beaumont
yeah,
Sumer, yeah.
yeah. And he makes a call, and you don't know what the call is for until they pull up to the station, and then you see a very attractive French woman get on and sit down right next to Michael Caine.
Mm,
um, and and that's how he gets Steve Martin to leave in the first time around.
yeah. Um, but then obviously, yeah, Steve Martin comes back, and then uh, Michael Caine gets him arrested because he follows Steve Martin ripping off a woman.
Hmm.
Then he shows this woman how he's actually spending the money, which he said would go to his
Hmm.
grandma. And you get this funny little sequence of him going around town with all these like women in bikinis
Hmm.
and whatnot.
He,
And
hanging out at the beach with other
yeah,
women.
yeah,
Uh, yeah. Um, Yeah, and so then we go from that into the
jail
sort of
scene.
main crux of the movie. Yeah, the jail. Oh yes, the jail. I
The
can't forget
jail.
the jail scene.
That's so funny. This is one of my favorite scenes. Because the way it's shot. This is one thing I wanted to mention. The cinematography is simple, but it's so there's so many shots and things that are really effective. So in this scene, for instance, there's the shot of when because Steve Martin doesn't know that the chief of police is connected with Michael Caine, and
Hmm.
so Steve Martin is trying to convince him that, oh no, I actually know someone in town, just let me go. And so he's like trying to remember the guy's name, and the shot is from the back of the so you see the back of the policeman's head, and it's just you can just imagine his face is completely deadpan, but they just
Hmm.
show the back of his face, and it's Steve Martin trying to remember this guy's name, and he's like
Hmm.
Jack, going through all the different sounds, trying to jog his
Hmm.
memory, and that's just
And yeah, and
yeah,
the police chief is giving him hints the whole time.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, that police chief has a number of pretty funny scenes. I think I can't remember if it's the first time Steve Martin leaves or the second. Oh, where he offers goes to Michael Caine. He says, I know this great guy who owes me a favor. His name is Rene the Knife. Um, it'd be quick, and they'd never find. I would make ensure that the police were the investigation is very shoddy.
yeah.
Uh,
No, he has the other great line is Steve Martin is saying to him, "Oh, she just caught me with another woman. You know how it is. You're French." And he says, "Oh, to have an affair is French, but to be caught, that is American."
yes.
Yeah,
uh,
so
yeah, and
he's
then I
great.
think we can go from there just into essentially one of the women that Michael Caine
Yeah,
has scammed um, refers to him is the prince.
yeah,
Uh, he's sent Steve Martin out of town on like the first flight out back to America, and he
yeah,
runs into to Lady Fanny of Omaha,
yeah,
uh, one of these sort of rich debutantes that Michael Caine has scammed in the past with his
yeah,
Prince routine. Um, so she believes that he's sort of
yeah,
an agent helping helping in the cause to free. I don't
yeah.
think they ever even give a name for the country,
No, they
but
don't. They don't. Well, I think that's part of the joke is like that it's so these women are so dumb that he's like tricking that they wouldn't even necessarily ask what the name of the country is or something.
they just hear there are all these dumb sort of American women who just
Yeah,
hear royalty
yeah,
and immediately become smitten.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Um,
where did we
yeah,
get
so
up to?
that sort of jumpstarts this weird relation, like
Yes,
apprentice relationship they have.
yeah, and
He
then
lives with Michael Caine for a while.
yeah, and
In the movie.
I wanted to mention this. You probably recognize that what the butler, Michael Caine's
Yes,
butler is what's his name?
Emperor Palpatine is
Yes.
Ian.
Oh,
Uh,
Ian McDiarmid. Ian McDiarmid?
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, that's how you say it. Yeah. Ian
yeah, yeah,
McDiarmid or whatever. Yeah, I just noticed that. I thought that was a funny little cameo.
yeah.
Was it?
I mean it's strange because there's only really, I mean, four or five characters in the whole
Yeah.
movie
It. It.
that have any screen time. It's
Yeah.
very centered on Steve Martin and Michael Caine, which is great because
Yeah.
they work great
They're so.
in the
Yeah.
comedic aspect.
And I think it's here we get like one of the best sequences, or two sets of sequences from the first half of the movie is the training montage,
Hmm.
which is so amazing, and it's just sort of so you're used to like a Rocky training montage of him doing jumping and punching things or whatever, but here it's a training montage of like Michael Caine trying to teach this like crass American Steve Martin how to be, an effete gentleman, European gentleman, and it's just so funny. Like it's just like holding up a glass of champagne, like how you're supposed to hold it up, and all these like little, very silly things. And then, yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, and it culminates in the end of the sequence being him playing Rupert or Ruprecht. I can't remember
Yes,
which
yeah, you're
is the correct.
Ruprecht.
Um, but his mentally disabled brother,
Yeah.
uh, who I my probably my favorite scene from that movie, the whole movie is the trident and
Ah, yes.
the fork with a cork in it. Um,
Why does the fork have a cork?
so Ruprecht doesn't hurt himself.
And now the butler comes. It's like, may I take your trident, sir?
Yes. Oh, and the kind of a joinder to that scene is the um he takes the woman they're scamming down to meet his brother
That's
in
such a good
his locked
sequence.
room.
Like they take him down. She take them down to this like dingy thing, like the back of his estate. It's like the door is a metal door. It's locked. It's got like a bar across it or whatever.
And in there he has a tire swing like a monkey.
Yeah. That's so funny. And like he tries to like hump Michael Caine, and then
Mhm.
and then like what does he say? He's like, "Oh, we're all gonna go live in Oklahoma," and oh no, we're getting married or something. And then Ruprecht goes and like he stands by the what do you call it? The sill over the fireplace, and he's
Mhm.
like starts knocking over like vases, like that. I just love the look he gives. It's just like,
Yeah, it's really that scene is all in the face he makes,
yeah,
the weird sort of squint he does when he's
yeah,
looking
yeah,
at it. Um,
and it's yeah,
and
it's
Yeah, so I guess
very effective.
the movie's really kind of divided into those two parts. By that scene is kind of divided into
Yeah,
two parts. So we have that first part where it's just Steve Martin
yeah. It feels a lot more
and
like
Michael.
a play, I would say,
Yeah,
the way it's written.
they're just chewing the scenery the whole time. They're just
Yeah.
having. You can tell they're just having a ton of fun with it.
Mm.
Um, and so we had they. I've always kind of felt like the second half is they're trying to like, oh yeah, we're making a movie. We have to have like a story with a
Yeah,
plot
yeah, yeah.
and everything.
A little. It
Um,
slows down a little bit. Like the second half, it's yeah not as comedic, and I feel like it drags maybe a tiny bit, but it's still like obviously really really good. You know.
Yeah, I would say the romance kind of seems a little unnecessary to me. Um,
Mm.
I mean, not that the actress does a bad job, but it's just I think it's just a little kind of, you know, you're at this point where the jokes have been coming like one after another basically the whole time, and you kind of have to slow down and have these emotional moments.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's still some very funny stuff. So basically, at this point in the movie, they've decided they can't. There's not enough room for the both of them in Beaumont-sur-Mer because Steve Martin doesn't want to just have to play the idiot brother in this scheme. He wants to, do more of his own thing, and so they decide to make a competition and see who can get the most money, or $50,000 out of this woman.
mhm. Yeah, they pick Janet Colgate, who's
Mm,
she's the American soap queen, or the
yeah,
American, which I think you're supposed to immediately associate with Colgate toothpaste and
yeah,
those
yeah,
sort of stuff, that sort of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, they enter sort of a gentleman's agreement that whoever if you're whoever gets the money out of her first
The winner.
is staying, and the other person has to leave town.
Yeah, and yeah, this is
That
so
it
funny.
also is one of their first attempt to sort of woo her is one of my other favorite scenes at
Oh
the
yeah,
casino.
yeah, yeah. That's a
At the
good
beginning
one.
of the movie, we see sort of Michael Caine like losing money on purpose to try to get the attention of these rich Americans, and then he sits down next to her at the and
Yeah,
he wins
yeah. He just
maybe
keeps
10 times
winning.
the money
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And then you
and
see him cashing in his chips as well, like towards the end of that scene. It is like
uh-huh.
quite a thick sum of money. because he
Mhm.
would have he would have won heaps of money because he like straight up correct got the correct thing on the roulette like 3 times in a row.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, and here we enter sort of Steve Martin's
Uh,
character. The character he'll be playing, the con he's running is he's a paraplegic American a Navy officer, uh,
yeah,
and he tells her the story of how he lost his legs or lost his ability to use his legs, which is he appeared as a guest on Strictly Come Dancing, which is like a or American Dance Queen. It's like one of those dance
yeah,
shows,
yeah.
and he found his fiance having sex with a host, and they were dancing naked, and he's been unable to use his legs ever since.
It's such a the way he like comes into that scene like in the wheelchair. He's just like, excuse me, excuse me." And he's just like
Yeah.
bumping into everything in his wheelchair.
Yeah. Well, I think he repeatedly slams into Michael Caine's
Oh
leg.
yeah, yeah, deliberately, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And uh, he describes so Steve Martin says basically that he's trying to get a he's got this he needs to see this very exclusive doctor in
mm.
Liechtenstein um, this psychiatrist who's going to help him regain the use of his legs. And
Yeah.
we enter probably my favorite part of the whole movie is Dr. Emil Schaffhausen is Michael
Mm.
Caine's character, this German doctor.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, so
so,
he's pretending to be the doctor that Steve Martin has made
yeah.
up, and it's just
Mhm.
so many layers to this like con at this point.
Yeah,
It's like so
yeah.
complicated.
Uh-huh. There's yeah, the best scene, one of my favorite scenes in that part is when he's uh it's a bit later in the movie, but he's they're living back at the villa. He's invited uh Janet and Freddie to live with him again, to like try to fix him.
Yeah.
And the suicide scene, the scene where
Oh yeah.
he's slowly rolling out to the beach.
No, I think the my favorite one is so Michael Caine is pretending to be this doctor, and he's pretending to do like a consultation with Steve Martin, and the
Mhm,
woman is there, and then he goes, "So you really can't feel anything in your legs?" And
mhm.
then he's like, "I think we have to try
We
something a
are
little
lost.
more
Yeah,
stringent."
yeah. Oh,
That's a good
oh,
one.
that reminds me of the scene with so the way Michael Caine essentially is telling Janet that he's going to fix Freddie's legs is basically, he needs to kind of re-experience this trauma he's had with his fiance.
Mm.
So he takes both of them out to this dance club.
Oh yeah.
Um, he starts dancing with Janet and gets this uh, he's repeatedly mocking him for not being able to use his legs and everything. Is like,
Yeah.
why don't you come dance with us?
Yeah.
We both know you're completely capable of it. And overhearing this whole thing is these Royal Navy sailors,
Yeah.
and seeing that Steve Martin's character is wearing a Navy uniform, they offer to put uh, Michael Caine on the next boat to El Salvador.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. That's good. And then, um, yeah, bait. I mean, I guess I'm happy to spoil the end of this one. Oh, I don't know. Maybe we should leave it.
yeah, I mean, I honestly think the twist really kind of plays well. It does. You don't really suspect it at
No,
all,
no. I think.
which is great for the characters. It makes you. The one criticism I have of the ending is that final scene with them
When she comes back.
yeah, when she comes back, and that kind of just, I don't know, it just seemed like sort of I don't know if sequel bait is the right word, but just sort of
Uh,
unnecessary to me.
it's. Uh. I find it kind of funny, but it is sort of a little bit. It's a wacky in a way that didn't
Yeah, it's a
complete.
wacky in the way the movie hasn't been so far. I mean, the movie is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
farce, obviously, but it's just
yeah.
it's it just seems a little strange, out of
I
place.
I think it is funny like what she ends up saying, and she's like, what's her character at that point? Anyway, we'll leave it. We'll leave it. I think we'll just say these are two movies that we recommend if you're in want a Michael Caine binge.
If you want a Michael Caine double feature, um,
Yeah.
and you want to see, I think the other thing that's great about both these movies is just how you can tell how much like fun he's having in this
Mm,
in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, especially. Just they're both kind of just you know, they seem larger than life in both in this movie.
mm.
So
Yeah, and Steve
wholehearted
Steve
recommendation.
Steve Martin. This is one of his better movies,
Yeah,
I'd say.
Steve Martin's had a it's very strange because he had like he was a stand-up comedy sensation like in the
Yeah.
70s. He had like popular one of the most popular shows ever. He like sold out basically all the way going all across the country, and then he just decided he was bored and just decided to stop. Um,
That's
and
fair enough. It's not making movies.
yeah, yeah, and he ended up making Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is probably one of his better movies. He did not have as great a movie career, I think, as he did in stand up comedy. And
No. And then like in the mid to late 90s was that like early 2000s he like played the dad in like every
yeah,
it was
he's in Cheaper by the Dozen,
yeah.
and
What's that? Was it
you know,
my daughter's groom or what is it? My I'm the father of the bride or something? Father of the bride? Like
I'm.
I'm thinking
Are you thinking of?
anyway.
Or- I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean he definitely had a couple other very good movies. I
Oh yeah,
think The Jerk is great.
planes, trains and
Um,
automobiles. That was a year before this. Oh,
yeah,
Three Amigos, of course.
yeah, Three Amigos.
That's another
Um,
classic. Yeah, no.
yeah, I think. Are you a fan of the Pink Panther remakes at all?
Oh yes, no, they're good. They no, he's actually he's amazing in them.
Yeah, I think they're good. I do enjoy the originals. Not to be
Ah,
too
yeah.
snobbish.
No,
I think the originals are so great.
I
Um,
think the remakes came out at like the exact time when I had that sense of humor when I was like I don't know how old I was like 14 or something. So it was
mhm.
like perfect timing. So they just I have not watched them since like becoming older and growing up a little bit more. So I don't know if they still hold up, but
It'd be interesting to see if they hold up for you then.
I don't know. I'll have to rewatch. I have to revisit the.
I think probably the last time I saw them, I was probably around that same age too. So I'd
Okay.
have to, I'd have to uh, make a thing of it.
Yeah.
Watch all.
I think there are funny. There's definitely like moments I remember being quite funny in those movies, but
Yeah, I mean it's hard. I mean those the original movies and the cartoon obviously are just
yeah,
so like so
iconic.
funny. It's
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm.
Peter Sellers is great in those original ones.
Oh yeah.
I think one of the first like lines I had memorized from a movie was the Peter Sellers Pink Panther. He's um, does your dog bite? No. Uh, and then the dog bites him. Well, that was not my dog.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. Do I have anything else to say about either of the movies?
Anything is kind of a hard thing to do for these two movies, but anything you find, any like weird similarities you find between the two, or anything connecting them?
Well, the main thing connecting them, the main reason I was like, "Oh, this sounds like it could be interesting," it was just two Michael
Yeah,
Caine
Michael Caine,
movies.
obviously.
I guess
Uh,
they're both set in Europe.
hmm
They've both mentioned communism. Uh,
Yeah, I know. I think there's like kind of I think Michael Caine plays a sort of similar character. This kind of
mm,
aloof sort of
yeah,
thing, and Michael Caine's usually sort of the working class hero kind of guy in
yeah.
most movies he plays.
Yeah.
Another reminds me of is he's in Zulu, where it's
Oh
another
yeah.
movie. If you're an impression, you're not going to want to watch that one either, because
Ah.
he is the same similar sort of a similar affect that like
Ah.
upper class guy.
Mr. Wayne. Mr. Wayne. When your parents died, Mr. Wayne. How's your Michael Caine impression?
Oh, it's awful. I think your accent's much more similar to him
Yeah,
than
yeah.
mine is.
I,
So it's,
yeah.
I can't even start.
Yeah, I realized that while trying to do it that the East London accent is sort of like just one or two steps away from Australian Bogan.
Mm,
So like I would keep slipping into Bogan when I was trying to do it. Mr. Wayne,
yeah,
this is gold. The Nazis stole this gold from the Jews, Mr. Wayne.
yeah. The one of my, I think I can't remember if it's the I think it's in the Batman Begins. He tells him that your great grandfather used this on the under yes, it was not terrible. It was the Underground Railroad ran
Uh,
through his house. You know,
what?
uh,
You
which
know
is
this
hilarious.
okay, so in Funeral in Berlin, this is what I would have written, I think is a much funnier line or much better line.
Mhm.
Is when she asks him, "Are you an anti-Semite?" So he just says no or something. He's like, "Oh, no." Or why do you I can't remember what he says, but I think it would have been really funny if he had said, "Only if the occasion calls for it."
Yeah, exactly.
Something
You
like that.
know, exactly. It it was strange a bit how like he's kind of sympathetic to her cause at that point,
Yeah.
but uh well the so I guess going back to it is she's they don't really care about getting this sort of former Nazi they're after. They just want the money that's associated
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
finding him. They want the $3 million or something they
Yeah.
want. But it's funny how sympathetic he is to them, even though like he's not really sympathetic to anything else in the movie. He's kind of just
Yeah.
detached.
I think I don't know if it's just because he likes her or I
Yeah,
don't know. Yeah, it was kind of weird that he wasn't more didn't have a more of a like a I don't know, like Dirty Harry type attitude towards that sort of thing as well. If you know what I mean, like
yeah,
he could should have been a bit more indifferent, maybe towards that.
hmm
But yeah, I don't know, very minor criticism, not really even a criticism.
yeah.
Mm. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything
hmm
that's there to cover.
Yeah, no, they're definitely both. Yeah, just good fun movies.
Yeah,
Not anything particularly deep in either of them, but that's
yeah,
not if you want to watch a movie, sometimes you just want to relax and get caught up either in a story or in some great comedy. So, um,
yeah. I'm just thinking now. How old was Michael Caine in during like the Batman trilogy? Because he would have been
he
like
was born, I think, in the early 30s,
30.
33, I think.
Damn, so he would have been 70 something during the Batman trilogy.
Yeah, it's impressive how he still works like pretty vigorously. He's been in a movie or a voice in something basically every single year
Yeah,
of his career. He's been an actor,
yeah,
so
yeah, wow.
he just keeps moving, I guess, which is good for him. I mean, I love seeing him and stuff,
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
it's great that he keeps moving.
It's good going back to his roles when he was a bit younger and that. Like, have you seen The Man Who Would Be King?
Yes, yeah, that's a great one.
That's another good. And that's Sean Connery as well, R.I.P.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah,
classic.
that is one of my favorite movies.
Oh,
That one
really?
is yeah, that's it's very. I'm a big fan of almost all of Rudyard Kipling's novels and books.
I
Um,
actually haven't read
and that,
any.
yeah, no, that's an adaptation
Oh,
of a
yeah,
short
yeah,
story he
yeah,
wrote.
yeah.
That one would definitely be ripe for some more kind of complex, you
Yeah,
know,
that would
uh,
almost be an episode unto itself, like trying to unravel
yeah,
that episode.
that would be sort of like if you're into the conspiracy angle
Oh
or
yeah.
anything, because it's very much involves Freemasonry,
Oh yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
it's very centered around that and Rudyard Kipling's own Freemasonry. and
Yeah.
how he actually appears in the movie too, which is kind of
Yeah,
funny.
that's kind of funny.
Because it's the same sort of framing device they use in the book, is that he's telling
Okay.
you this story because he met these two men, um,
Uh,
but that he's just in the movie for the second part. But,
yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, we'll keep that in the pocket, maybe.
mhm.
Just down the track.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me in this discussion
Hmm.
today.
It was
It
a
was a
lot
lot
of
of
fun.
lot of fun. Um, People can find you at Muskox online on Twitter.
Yep. That's my only real social media presence. So yeah, just follow me there if you like stupid jokes, I guess.
Very nice. All right.
Occasionally some orthodox stuff in there, but I'm not an authority on anything really. So
Yeah. I don't think either of us are. That's okay.
no.
Uh, all right. Goodbye.